everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We are the panel about planning.
Economic planning and social entrepreneurship.
There you go. And we are very excited to be here to share our projects with you. We will be starting with presentations, 4-minute presentations by each one of us. And then I'm going to do a small recap of findings. Let's start with, okay, just first starters. English, Spanish. Okay, hands up if you don't understand Spanish. Okay, so we'll do it in the Spanish speakers. Just do no English.
And then you translate, right? The majority of the group is Spanish. No?
Spanglish. We'll do it in Spanglish. Okay.
Do you want one of us to go out there and help translate or something?
Sure, yeah.
He doesn't comment all the time.
Okay, now you're Moderator.
Do the Spanish speakers understand English?
I am the moderator, but my English is not too good. It's more better in Spanish. I am from Maricao. Esta jibarita está orgullosa de estar aquí. We began today with the economy planning and social entrepreneurship. Soy Jacqueline Pérez, the director of Fundación Bucarabon en Maricao. Obtuvimos una escuela en desuso hace aproximadamente un año que empezamos con el transcurso de esta obtención de la escuela. El proyecto. Empieza de nuevo, sorry, completamente. This will be better, I've done it before, go ahead. I'm the director of Fundación Bucarabon. Obtuvimos una escuela en Maricao hace aproximadamente un año. Estamos con el proceso.
Yeah, they obtained a school and a school in Maricao a year ago. They're in the process of doing that.
Tenemos un proyecto comunitario. Maricao es el segundo pueblo con menor población de la isla.
We have a community project. Maricao is the second town with the least population in the island.
Tenemos un proyecto educativo. ¿Sí? ¿Perdón? Se espera que para este próximo censo, menos de 3,000 personas.
Wow.
Under 3,000 people for the 2020 census.
Yes. Culebra is the first one town in Puerto Rico with less population.
And can I ask you a question? Is that, ¿eso ha disminuido mucho más entonces desde María? ¿Cuánto era la población antes de María?
Sí, aproximadamente eran 5,000, casi 6,000.
Okay, so casi la mitad.
Se espera ahora que para este censo esté por debajo de los 3,000.
Gracias.
So before Maria, it was between 5,000 and 6,000. So it's basically been halved since Maria.
Wow.
Comenzamos este proyecto porque esta fue mi escuela elemental intermedia.
We started this project because this was her middle school. You were a teacher there? Am I right?
No, estudiante. Student. She's student at school, yes.
Grammar school and middle school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just a small pause. Can we leave the questions for the end? Just to like, thank you so much.
Entonces continuamos con este proyecto. Este proyecto es un proyecto de educación. Vamos a tener talleres para los agricultores enfocados en agricultura y mujeres.
Okay, so this is an educational project, and that's what they're working on, and they will have, it's going to be focused on agriculture work for men and women.
Una incubadora culinaria, farm to table.
A farm to table culinary incubator.
Focus on agriculture in the region. By the last, un pequeño hotel.
Focused on agriculture in the region, but also establishing a small hotel.
Enfocado en estudiantes y en personas que vayan a ayudar a la comunidad.
And it's focused for students and people that are going to help with the community. That's the target audience.
Básicamente, ¿dónde estamos actualmente? Pues estamos dentro de una comunidad que está deprimida económicamente.
for within an economically depressed community.
Las personas, el promedio de ingreso anual en Maricao es de $5,000 aproximadamente anual.
Per capita? Oh my lord. The per capita income in Maricao on average is $5,000 per year.
Yes. En su gran mayoría son agricultores y obviamente sus familias.
These are farmers and their families.
Básicamente lo que queremos hacer es educar a estos agricultores para que una vez tengan sus cultivos de los diferentes productos puedan obtener el mayor valor por su producto y entonces obviamente pues obtener la mayor ganancia.
Basically, what they're trying to help is these farmers to improve their gains from what they produce by having the best market sale value.
¿Hacia dónde vamos? Pues queremos llevar la economía a otro nivel de lo que es Maricao y la región, porque no es solamente un proyecto de Maricao, sino un proyecto regional.
Where we headed, we want to transform the economy of Maricao and not the region, because this is not just about my town, but my town within the region.
I'm working with Ramón Borges. He lives here in Massachusetts.
Worcester, Massachusetts.
Right. Él es mi mano derecha, que estamos trabajando aquí desde el principio.
Ramón Borges is a professor at Worcester, Massachusetts, and he's her right-hand man here in the States helping her out with this project.
Necesitamos mucha ayuda, ¿por qué? Porque obviamente no contamos con la ayuda del gobierno y entonces necesitamos traer esta gente que está ¿verdad? En este estado, por decirlo así, depresivo económicamente, para que entonces comiencen a retomar otra vez el trabajo de la tierra y entonces, pero hacerlo esta vez un poquito más alentador y que obtengan la ganancia justa para ellos.
We need help because the government does not provide any funding for this, so we're trying to, bring these farmers along and get for them a fair, it's the equivalent of fair wage, it's the concept of fair wage for the work that they do,
A just wage.
A just wage.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so my name is Marrero. I'm the Director of Planning and Economic Development for the City of Holyoke. I've been in that role for about 7.5 years. I'm originally from Puerto Rico, although what originally from means whatever, New York, Puerto Rico, whatever, but I did grow up in Puerto Rico. And so, I don't mean to be prescriptive about anything I say about economic development in Puerto Rico. I haven't been on the island for almost 2 years now. And one of my frustrations with every panel on economic development is that it seems to be very prescriptive, and we only have this kind of tax credit for this program. If there's, in my 4.5 minutes, if there's one idea, I just want to focus on just one simple idea, is that as all this change is happening in Puerto Rico, and we see all these constraints, and we're trying to tear down systems and build new systems, one clear paradigm in economic development has to change. And it has been a cornerstone of economic development in Puerto Rico throughout its whole history. It's that we cannot be consumers of economic development. Economic development isn't something you consume or that you buy. But we have to be participants of economic development, and that's what I see with the story that we just heard here. We cannot buy it through tax credits. Taxes can be zero in Puerto Rico, and it may not fix it, or probably won't fix the problems. What we've done here in Holyoke, which incidentally is the city it's the location with the highest proportion of Puerto Ricans per capita outside of the island of Puerto Rico. It is somewhere around 45% Puerto Rican, about 50% Latinos. When I started, this administration started, we're at a generational high watermark for unemployment at somewhere north of 13%. All projections had the city going bankrupt by 2015. Massive levels of disinvestment. And where we are today is a very different place from there. We're seeing a generational low in unemployment in about 20 years, the lowest unemployment. We're seeing our bond rating go up, and we're seeing record levels of investment. So, that idea is all based on us not being consumers of economic development. You can't just buy it. And everything in Puerto Rico has been, for at least 3 generations, just trying to buy economic development through tax credits. But also reinforcing this enclave economy that we've had since Spanish times. What does that mean? It means propping up an economy based off of production that's really, Puerto Ricans paid for their labor, right, to the extent that there is payment for the labor. It may or may not be just, but it's payment for labor. But the ownership of the economic production tends not to be in service or in ownership of Puerto Ricans, but for foreign companies, and there's an extraction of wealth through that process. And then the wealth that is in Puerto Rico, right, generated by labor, is set up to consume goods and services that we don't make in Puerto Rico. Think about energy, right? Think about healthcare, prescriptions, and prevention. Think about our transportation, or a whole host of things that we, our main staple is rice. I mean, I'm just going to say it, we don't make rice either. So all the income that's generated in Puerto Rico ultimately is set up in the major categories that we produce to go out of the island. So that's the main thing that I would just focus on for economic development, because we cannot think about solutions, we cannot think about programs without really changing that paradigm. And I would also challenge the idea that as a diaspora, as in our Puerto Rican community, we have to all agree on a couple of steps and then work on them. Mm-hmm. I think if we can agree on goals and approaches and paradigms, we can, just like people took out a governor, it wasn't centrally planned. It wasn't, let's all agree on doing this or that. It was everyone working to some extent in their silos, I would say better in their communities, and seeing, okay, we're all working towards this goal. What are they doing? What are they doing? What do I do best? And then contributing ultimately to that goal. I think that mimics a lot of things that we've done in Holyoke, which I won't go into in 4 minutes, and can lead to wealth building over time. That's it. How'd I do?
20 seconds. That was fantastic. Okay.
No, is it? Okay. So, good afternoon, buenas tardes. My name is Rubén Flores-Marzán, originally from Puerto Rico. I am from Puerto Rico. Prior to becoming planning director in the U.S., currently with the town of East Windsor, Connecticut, I used to be the planning chairman for the Puerto Rico Planning Board, la Junta de Planificación de Puerto Rico. So I know a little bit about what's going on, and I paid attention to what you were saying back in New York 2 years ago and what you just said about an hour ago. Got 3 things to tell you. First of all, you're doing a fantastic job at the community level in terms of, grabbing the bull by the horns and getting your communities up to speed, regardless of what FEMA and what the government of Puerto Rico is doing. Matter of fact, you really don't need them. Matter of fact, you are focused on what you need to do, which is to empower your communities, and over time, you will get to the next level, which is where you are going to be better than what you were before. However, there's a clear present danger at this moment that it all started back in March of 2017, 6 months before Hurricane Maria. Public Law 19 of 2017, which is the permitting reform law. No one paid attention to this, but that reform, which has basically takes the whole planning framework that has been in the island for the past 50 years and just toss it out the window. Right now, what you have is that the long-range planning for the island, it has been delegated, instead of the planning board, it has been delegated to the OCPE, which is, for old-time folks, it used to be the ARPE, the Permitting Office of the Island. Just Google ARPE, just Google OCPE, and you'll see countless OGPE, OCPE, and it used to be ARPE, the Administration and Permitting Regulation Office, ARPE. So this is a significant issue that whomever is in charge next January of 2021 needs to deal with immediately. Also here in the diaspora, we need to take care of this, because if we don't have a long-term vision for development and then we have instrumentalities in place that don't know about planning, don't know about development, have a history of corruption from the inside, you can toss billions of dollars, but these will not take care of recovering our communities to what were they before and how we envision for them to be at in the future. So that, you need to be paying attention to that one. Number 2, 5,000 plus projects of the recovery stages, at different stages. That's what we hear. Has anyone seen a list of those projects? Has anyone seen a list of towns that will be benefiting from those funds? What kind of projects are we talking about? Are these projects bringing in resiliency? Are they making our communities better? No clue. I know a little bit about this because of my time at the planning board, but in my spare time, I'm studying for a doctorate in planning, and this is a particular focus of mine. It's almost impossible to get information from the authorities regarding where we at in terms of the projects, in terms of the criteria. That is something that I think we were all able to get Ricky out, and I know Ricky because I used to work under Luis Fortuño, and I worked under Aníbal Acevedo Aguilar. I was in Fortaleza 3 out of the 5 days of the week for 5 years. So, I know how the game is played, but we're more powerful, and we have funds. So we need to continue organizing and sharing information because Puerto Rico cannot go back to the dark ages. One more thing, planning board, my old home. Maria, and she used to be my number 2 at the planning board. She's a very professional woman, technically sound.
It's Maria Gordillo.
Maria Gordillo.
She's the head of the planning board now.
So I don't know I kind of know what's going on, but don't know. No contact with her whatsoever. This is the issue. They're trying to take the whole island and rezone a lot of the property on the island. Lots of these parcels are actually located in highly environmentally sensitive areas or areas that were significantly impacted by Hurricane Maria and Irma. The problem with that is when you rezone property, you change from a long-term planning perspective to a speculative perspective. So I do have a hunch. I was listening to Edwin in his presentation. I'm like, So, we went through Promesa, we went through all these arrangements in depth and all that. What's the take? I am agreeing to all these things. What am I getting in return? And I'm like, okay, so how come the planning board is undergoing this extreme exercise in rezoning a lot of property on the coastal areas, and no one knows where these parcels are, no one knows the land acreage, no one knows from existing zoning to a proposed zoning? I don't know, I'm highly suspicious about the whole thing. Those are 3 things I think we need to pay considerable attention if we want to continue for Puerto Rico to be a more just society, and not just for a few. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Camille Collazo. Back in 2014, I created Visit Rico to shed light on our health crisis, physical, mental, emotional in Puerto Rico, by supporting one of the pillar sources of health, our ecological farmers, who are at the same time the protectors of our finite natural resources. So what do we know? Uncertainty, that's the truth. Economic distress directly affects our health no matter the social class. We only produce 15% of our food, and the majority of that is not ecological. We spend $3.5 billion annually importing agricultural products and food. They become $8.5 billion in retail sales that we also buy, like we said. Processed food that is making us sick. In the face of the national instability and food crisis, we need to take care of ourselves. Begins with what we eat, lowering our stress. Who has stress in this room right now? Who lives with stress?
Everyone.
Everyone, right? But we need to share time with our community, and that can lower our stress. Our programs, educational network, strengthen projects in Puerto Rico, increase demand for local products, 1, 2, 3. And 6 programs. Regrow Puerto Rico, we provided direct economical aid for farmers from our farmers network in Puerto Rico, farmers market. 3 months, for the first 3 months after Maria, for a total of $488,000. I said $1 million, no, $1,000, hopefully. We provided initial stability. Certainty is a huge stressor. farmers and Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico go through cumulative adversity, like you said in your presentation. We have cumulative adversity and trauma exposure. We can't let them down because it is us who depend on them. We have the other program, which is Agroecological Alliances. We meet, actually it started off formally after Maria, and we meet to follow up on what we're doing together. The Agroecological Interpretation Program, which is an education program to help farmers communicate emotional and intellectual connections between the interests of the visitors and the true meaning of the ecological space. Agritourism is one of our pillars, farm-to-table educational experiences in Puerto Rico, volunteerism connecting travelers who want to volunteer their time with transformative experiences related to agroecological practices and local nutrition. Ayúdate que yo te ayudaré. We just founded a program called Para Comerte Mejor, the better to eat you with. And it's, yes, it's lovely. And it's us help each other, like the organization, to help others. Something we didn't do before. We just help, but not help ourselves. So this is part of the program. It is a member-based program, and it has many lovely enterprises. I can share if you're interested. So what needs to be done? Self-care is the first one. Put the mask first and then others. All of us are living with constant stress. Like it or not, it is affecting our brain. When the stress goes up, it impairs the most fundamental demanding skill, empathy. Support local organizations. Choose the one you like. There's so many in Puerto Rico. The one that causes tingling sensation to you. Commit, like, this is really exciting for me, commitments. We have our first agritourism ambassador. He's from New York. He has a very wealthy, successful entity in New York and is selling a product, MPG Essentials. The 10% of that product goes to our mission. So if you have an enterprise and you commit with whichever way possible. Wow, I didn't practice properly.
We do a grown system. What? Let's make me let me go.
Yeah, I just started talking about I'm going to finish very quickly. So yes, the commitment. Visit Puerto Rico. I know that's amazing. That's so much necessary for us. Come to visit Puerto Rico, plan your visit and include a visit to a farm. Support farmers markets in Puerto Rico, CSA, community-centered agriculture. And save the seeds, diversity, polycrops is the solution. And last but not least, stop manufacturing the disease in the first place. We need to be part of public policy against Monsanto and glyphosate. That's part of the most important ingredient that is actually in all of our food. If it's not ecological organic, it has glyphosate. That's the truth. And there's something here that you said, so I don't need to say it again, but he's right. There's a huge, huge problem with our land that's going to be dissected and changed just for the benefit of a couple of people that want to benefit. And who is going to do it? Like Ellie said, Puerto Ricans united. We need the numbers, and it's a shared responsibility. We entice empathy. The agroecological alliances, and as per one of the items that came out of the meeting was help needs to be regional. After hurricanes or any disaster we need to be okay in our region with the sources we need, not to wait for it to come months later. So there's more, but that's okay. So it's just shed the light on the solution, share the responsibility. And as Eugenio Maria de Hostos said, he said many things. Agriculture is the backbone of a nation. Thank you. And just before the questions, or after? Okay, questions. Yeah, Edwin.
I can wait. You wanted to say something?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I wanted to recap a little bit, or should I do it later?
No.
Okay. Okay, so I feel so happy to be here with them here and just see that, hey, it's the same. Actually, the other panelists and the other rooms, we're just talking about the same thing. And I want to be there too, and with the other one too. And with Bucarabon, it's incredible how she just knows. She requires all this knowledge and just stays in her Maricao and supports a very, very, very in need community that have the skills themselves. It's not like we need to like teach them something they don't know. They have the skills. You shed light. You're shedding light, and we're really proud of that. And I'm so proud that you stayed outside as well, because you brought so much knowledge. And by sharing that we need to become participants of our own economic development, that's what she's doing. That's what I'm doing. And we need to be careful with what you share with us, because that could compromise many things that we want to do, because it shifts everything. In Puerto Rico, we just change something that was good. You don't fix something that's broken. And that's exactly what's happening with the Plan de Uso de Terreno in Puerto Rico. And they agree on the steps. We need to agree, and that's why this event is happening, to pinpoint, okay, here, there, just agree on what are the next steps for all of us. And we all depend on each other. I guess, there's more, but that's all for now. Questions?
No, I just wanted to take a minute, if I can, to add to the panel the following. Centro just completed adding the agricultural layer for the GIS platform that we have. And it occurs to me, well, first of all, it's a platform that has over 120 layers right now, so all the demographics are there and what have you. For those of you who know what that means for community planning, we have all the flooding areas, we have the 100 years event, the 500 years event, we have all the FEMA claims for damages we have. So it's a very powerful platform, right? We just got from the Agriculture Department, the Federal Agriculture Department, the land use in Puerto Rico, which includes agricultural land. And so that's a very powerful tool for the kind of things we're doing. Also for relocation of communities, for all kind of planning, right? But I'm highlighting the agricultural layers. They're not public yet, but we got them last week. After too many efforts to get them, we have finally did. But there is another layer that I'd like you guys to help, which is the new planning zone. For example, we have the mitigation plans that are in progress, that kind of stuff. We have the flooding areas with the vulnerability index, but we don't have all the mitigation plans because that's unfolding. So we don't know exactly what the municipalities' mitigation plans look like, what areas they're going to do, what and how. We have some of them that have published that already, como and what have you. But we don't have all of them, but we're working on that. But my point is that these zoning changes are critical. And that overlap in between, mitigation and flooding and vulnerability. Vulnerability index is complex, but we have all the layers for the various components of it. All of that, if you overimpose the thing, if you overimpose the new zoning proposal from the planning board, we just need help getting those layers. It's not as easy as it seems. You got to put political pressure here and there to get them. But I assume that this is a very critical, important thing for the future of Puerto Rico and how communities are planning. The other thing I will say about this platform is that the motivating factor when we did our first planning meeting, I think Camille, you were there, December 3, UPR 2017. This is right after Maria. And they asked us, can you tell us who's doing what, where, and when? Answering that question is complicated. So we spent the next 2 years trying to figure it out. We have a lot of that in terms of organizations in our GIS database, and you can download that. But we need to do some, crowdsourcing for the kind of things that Rico is doing. Enter the farms in there. For the kind of, we have all the schools closing, we have all the Montessori schools. So those layers, all of those things are interactive with each other for community planning purposes, right? But what I'm suggesting is that the effort of who's doing what, when, and where, which seems so simple, is not. We have added a lot of stuff from foundation funding, funding layers and stuff like that, but we're still lacking what's happening at the grassroots level. So here's an invitation that if we can adopt all one locality where we're going to enter the information of what the organizations are doing, it will be a very powerful thing to connect to each other. I don't think that anyone else is doing that in Puerto Rico. The main reason why we're doing it is if you don't do it, how are we going to connect the people and so forth? But what I'm suggesting is that the foundation of that is already there. And the applicability of this, for those of you who know GIS stuff, you know, you can enter that with your cell phone, you know, at some point. You just set it up in a way that you can walk through vacant lots and say, this lot is vacant, this lot is, the house is abandoned. We have a lot of that, but we're lacking more. So I'm suggesting, you know, moving forward, one of the things that we need to talk about is how to, you know, we're doing seminars, training local groups as to how to use the platform, but how does it apply to planning and to agriculture and some specific sectors? It remains to be done. In other words, you know, I don't know where we go with this effort, but that's one suggestion that I have to connect to each other, but also to. I will say one more thing. At the national level, one more thing. At the national level, we have put layers for all the Puerto Rican organizations. We have 150 parades and festivals, believe it or not. Wow. If it's a question of, you know, party, we know how to party. Okay? We're second to nobody in doing parades and festivals. But my point is that if you add them, you know, 500,000 to 1 million in New York, 20,000 in Springfield, 20,000 in Denver, go figure, 60,000 a weekend in Sunset in Kissimmee, okay? And I can keep adding. Those are pretty much more than half of the Puerto Rican population stateside. How can we market this is Rico, you know, your coffee, right? Your products, how can we weave all that in an effort to have direct solidarity, capitalize, monetize our mission, you know, through the diaspora? How can we get travel trips to visit the farms in Visit Rico with a package, not scattered, a package with the Airbnb, you know, whatever, you know, with the food, with the volunteer activities. Give us that package, and Ware will make sure that the parades and festivals actually do it, right?
Yeah, I'm on it.
I'm sorry for the speech.
Actually, I have a one comment. I think you talk about food resiliency. Congresswoman Lydia Velázquez is actually working that topic right now, and she needs partner and support from folks in the island. This is a topic that has been worked before. Mirna Comas, former Secretary of Agriculture, is well versed in the topic. So I would encourage all of you to try to connect with them. I'll be happy to connect you with a legislative person that is working that topic. She's Puerto Rican and she's awesome. And to everybody else that does not have a farm or doesn't want to get involved there, call your congressperson and say that you want them to co-sponsor that bill so it gets more traction. I'll be happy to talk a little bit later.
What's the name of the bill?
I didn't know the name of the bill, but I'll be happy to share it. I don't know if Centro can send something later, but I'll be happy to share it.
Thank you. I have a question.
Gracias. I want to first comment something that Marrero said that I agree with wholeheartedly, which is that we have to agree on goals and approaches. And that's a bigger umbrella to get more people involved. And then also to Jacqueline, te admiro mucho porque me imagino que contra viento y marea has levantado esto. Y si nos podría decir un poquito más, ¿cómo fue que conseguiste que el municipio no el municipio, cómo esa escuela, cómo convenciste al Departamento de Educación que te permitiera utilizar esa escuela? Esa es la primera pregunta. Entonces, la segunda, ¿por qué es importante tu colaboración con Ramón Borges en Murcia?
Okay, so the question is, what do you go through to obtain access to that school in terms of dealing with the bureaucracy? And then the other question was, what kind of relationship do you have with Ramón Borges?
Why is that collaboration important?
Why is that collaboration important to you?
It took 1 year to obtain the school, to Fortaleza. Estuvimos un año tratando de obtener esta escuela, and many documents, many permits,
reuniones.
This is a vacant school for people that understand there's lots of vacant schools in Puerto Rico because they
Yes.
were closed down, okay?
It's an agricultural school, and it has 30 acres and 25 rooms. It's a big one. It's a segunda unidad from elemental a intermedio.
From elementary to middle school,
Middle
so
school.
that's the,
It's very difficult with the government right now to obtain the school. 1 year, reuniones, cartas, documentos, permisos. Me la quitaron en algún momento porque because they need to hacer un almacén.
she went through,
storage.
permits and paperwork and so forth. At some point, they actually took it away from her because they needed storage, you know, so it was out of the play. And then then it came back in play.
Y finalmente hace como un mes y medio solamente, la cerraron el año pasado, hace como un mes y medio fue que finalmente ya obtuvimos estos documentos. Por 1 año, es un contrato de 1 año y lo van renovando año por año.
She got the contract a month and a half ago, and it's an annual contract, so that means that in a year, they could pull it out from other.
A Ramón lo conocí precisamente el año pasado cuando él fue a hacer un estudio de las mujeres en el cafetal, porque yo soy ingeniero civil. I am a civil engineer. I am a coffee businesswoman also.
So Ramon went down to the island to do a study of women in the coffee industry, and she is a civil engineer and also a coffee producer herself.
Y entonces ahí,
As well, woman.
just in this moment, Ramón fue que me entrevistó en ese momento y entonces le dijo, oye, están cerrando lo que fue mi escuela elemental intermedia. ¿Qué podemos hacer allí?
So Ramon came to interview her as part of his research, and in the conversation says, hey, they're closing my middle school. What can we do about this?
Y ahí fue que comenzamos con esta conversación y Ramón me dijo, vamos a obtenerla. Ha sido una gran ayuda durante todo este año, Ramón, en todos los niveles, tanto del dinero que hemos obtenido, tenemos un fondo semilla.
So Ramon says, well, let's get to work on this, and let's get it for you, and they have worked on all sorts of issues, including obtaining seed funding. I want to stress, Ramon lives here, okay?
Yes.
So, you know.
Él viaja constantemente a Puerto Rico y entonces ahí es donde nos encontramos. Constantemente lo estoy molestando por teléfono también.
He travels a lot to Puerto Rico, and that's when they communicate because they talk by phone.
Pero ha sido bueno porque he estado en muchas facetas. Como les mencioné, soy ingeniero civil. Sé el problema que está teniendo de vivienda esa área de arriba. Actualmente trabajo como ingeniero civil y estoy viendo casas que, como le estaba mencionando a Meléndez ayer, no es que simplemente tengan toldo.
Wait. Her preparation as a civil engineer has allowed her to see other facets of the community. For instance, housing, where it's not only that they have blue tarps, but
They don't have roof. The houses don't have roof. Many houses, maybe 200 houses in this region. So much. Y estoy contenta de estar, ¿verdad?, dentro de una región que está de bajos recursos económicos, no tienen vivienda, la gente no encuentra cómo volver a sembrar. Están surgiendo muchos proyectos, pero este proyecto que estamos haciendo lo que hace es volver a revivir lo que es esa región.
so she finds that, people don't have housing, they're having trouble finding how to go back to agriculture. And what this organization is trying to do is reseeding that desire and will to go back to the land and back to what they were doing before. This is not new for them.
Y crear empleos.
And to grow and create jobs.
Gracias.
Who wants to ask questions? Okay, 1, 2, anyone else? 3, 4, and 5. So now you can lower your hands, and when the number comes, you.
Sounds ignorant, but it kind of said the right question. We don't grow rice in Puerto Rico at all. Do we?
They try.
And
We tried.
so, is that going to be a focus of now as to trying to figure out how to grow rice in Puerto Rico?
Is rice an option for Puerto Rico? Garcia Padilla tried, and then I don't know what.
It was the flavor, like, he was growing rice, but it was integral, not the white processed, the one that everybody likes. But it was for the schools, and then in the schools, the kids
It
didn't like.
doesn't function. It doesn't function, it's a product, but it doesn't work in the region in Lajas.
It's a pilot, no funcionó. No, it's a pilot project that did not work. But she's saying it's not, it's the rice without the husk, and it has a different flavor, and so, but in any event, it did not work. But it was not the white rice that we all like.
By the way, when I mentioned that, and so I wasn't trying to suggest we should grow rice, so I love your question, right? Because I figured, oh, maybe someone will figure, that's very land intensive and very water intensive. My point is that we face a series of challenges that, look, we can imagine a dystopia in which Puerto Rico has 400,000 people in the future and is inundated by climate change. Can we imagine ourselves eating something that's not rice? Right? Our #1 export is culture. If we get the world to dance trap, right, we have a whole creative class that can, I'm sure, get us to eat something else that is not a staple, that is a legacy from an agricultural, from our economy and our society that was built on agriculture, right? And it was built on a consumption of things that were made outside of Puerto Rico as an enclave economy. But the same thing can be said about oil. In 2008, the Bush tax cut, stimulus tax cut, provided $1 billion for the Puerto Rican economy. Did anyone feel that? No, because the increase in oil prices cost the Puerto Rico economy $2 billion, right? Do we make oil? No. Forget about the environmental reasons. Do we make cars? Do we get metal from everything? No. So why do we transport ourselves through the vehicle? There's like 1 car for every 3 or 2 people in Puerto Rico. And so land use is, yes, about the land use plan, but it's also about how we're going to plan our urban spaces. You know, we need to get around. That's the problem. We need to eat. That's the problem. How are we going to do it in a way that is inherently Puerto Rican, but is not stupid? Because we're self-defeating ourselves. And when you look at the pie, at where our money is going to, it's in consuming all these things that we don't make, that we have to buy from somewhere else, right? And that's the point.
So how do we control the work, right? So when we're talking about fair trade, Turkish is way ahead of us on that. How do we do that for Puerto Rico? How do we take over our shipping?
We're not a sovereign nation.
And so will we try to do that? Is that part of the future?
We are not in charge of our commerce. We're not a sovereign nation.
Well, we are in the sense that we can produce things.
Yeah. No, she was saying how to control
So the
how to
only,
control the market. We can't.
and so you're saying that because of the Jones Act, the only way to get past the Jones Act would be to go to independent, which we probably never did. Or Congress.
So the practical matter to figure this out, I would suggest, would be for everyone to register to vote. And next November, throw that piece of paper, that roll of paper towel at him back. Okay, so we start with that. We need to get people in city councils, we need to get people in US Congress positions, and we also need to get folks to care about what's happening in the island besides getting on their phone and tweeting about it. We start with sharing information. Centro has been dealing with all these layers. This is no such simple task. Puerto Rico Plan Board had over 150 layers, and those were developed on the GIS system for about 10, 15 years. So that's an insurmountable challenge, and if we can support Centro with some funding, that'd be great. We need to reach out to FEMA. The folks that are in Washington should be knocking on the door of Pete Gaynor. I used to work with Pete Gaynor back in Providence, Rhode Island, and he's a great guy. And he's going to be the FEMA administrator. And he's been in Puerto Rico for about 5 times now. And he knows what needs to be done, when he needs to be empowered here in the States. And the best way to do that is for people that are in the region to knock on that door and say, hey man, you know what needs to be done, and we're here for you to empower you. And that needs to be constant. We need to have people in the White House and the Congress. You know, those 2 layers of government, they need to talk to each other with the agenda that Puerto Rico needs to be made whole. If we don't do that, we're just going to be spinning our wheels.
My last question. If we, I know that, so la prima mía, she lives in Puerto, her father had passed away. So from what I'm hearing is that when houses are mostly going in, well, when the child or the family member takes over the house, if it's not heated, those houses are being taken. Is there an organization in Puerto Rico who's helping when homes are basically generational and there is no new deed, who's helping with those homes so somebody doesn't go in there and take the house?
I know there is a community land banks that work really well in Detroit and in other states. There has been meetings in Puerto Rico. I have participated. I don't know where it's at right now, but community land bank is a resource where it needs to identify, like a team of members in the island and the Diaspora, it's the Diaspora. Puerto Ricans abroad can go with a set of tools, community land bank tools, identify the different houses that are vacant, and decide what they want to do with the places. And so, more information about that I can share with you.
There's also Fundación de Fondo de Acceso a la Justicia. That's the people that are charged. Every state has an organization that does civil legal work as opposed to criminal. Instead of criminal legal aid, this is civil legal aid, okay? And during the whole post-reconstruction thing, they spent a lot of time fighting with FEMA over the deed. Because if you did not have the deed, you could not get the federal funding. So they might be not the people who do it, but a source of information. You can write it down. We can talk afterwards. Okay?
Great. Next question.
Yeah, my question is on the Puerto Rican Conservation Trust Fund. In your experience in the planning in Puerto Rico or here, have you heard of it? What's the impact that it's having in Puerto Rico? And I know there's a bill that Congresswoman Lydia Velasquez is championing, that's actually right in the Ways and Means Committee right now, that will allow a certain percentage of funds that are sold, any rums that are sold outside of the island, a certain percentage that goes to the Puerto Rican Conservation Trust Fund.
So it goes strictly for conservation, or does it?
Correct, yes.
That's the room tax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is all great, and it should be promoted and hopefully pass in Congress. The problem is when those dollars get to the government of Puerto Rico, when Puerto Rico doesn't really have an understanding of how it wants to grow into the future, because you no longer have a planning board that has been empowered and has the support from the people to say, this is how we are going to grow in the next 10, 15, 25 years. You no longer have that structure. So you may be having the funding, but the ones that are making the decisions in terms of land use and development are a few people that we no longer can control through the planning process because the framework has been diluted. It used to be a planning board, now it's RPA, and they just don't have the skill set or capacity to do that kind of work. They're just people that they approve permits. That's in their DNA. They are not looking at the environmental factors, the sociological factors behind development proposals. And what you are basically doing is that you're creating more of a disaster because now you have money to do the bad things rather than having a planned, organized way of going into the future. I would say that organizations at the community level, kind of like Para la Naturaleza and all these different folks, Fernando, and I'm sure there are many others out there.
But they're the ones who get the room tax.
They're getting the rum tax, but in terms of allocating parcels that they can acquire, they're going to have to go through the planning process, and you don't have an agency that has the position to say, you know what, I agree with your proposal, let's move it forward. You're going to have an agency that says, like, who the hell are you? I'm not going to approve what you're saying. You may have the money, but you're going to have it. I mean, government is not going to be an ally for you in this process, which is why I'm saying we need to look at this particular law, and make the necessary changes to it. There are good components to that piece of legislation that was passed 6 months before Maria, but that whole planning thing, they basically discarded the whole framework that was enacted back in the 50s. And you know what? If you're just going out the door and you don't have a vision of where you want to go, good luck to you.
Yeah.
Next question. Number 3.
Is that me?
Is it you?
So long ago. I know, right? First of all, I wanted to thank all you guys for being here and talking to us and explaining some of the things that probably are in our minds and we don't know how to do that and how to ask and where to go or where to look for answers. My question is for Rubén.
Yep.
What did you mean when you said in a statement that said Puerto Rico cannot go back to dark ages? Can you explain that?
Absolutely. So, if you take a look at the economic history of the island, there have been a lot of losers and very few winners. Back in 2010, 2012, when I was the head of the planning board, we were in the midst of the global economic crisis. So we had a lot of people that were out of a job because, in the construction trades, no one was developing anything, constructing building projects. Most of these folks were in the residential construction, and when you take a look at the data, there's a surplus of homes in Puerto Rico, homes that haven't been occupied for different reasons. So to compound the problem, you had a lot of dollars that came from the stimulus package from President Obama. But Puerto Rico really, at the central government, really didn't have a clue because Puerto Rico doesn't have a culture, a mainstream culture of planning. The people that talk about planning are either they work for the government, they're in the planning board and different agencies. Well, outside of that, people are like, I can do whatever I want with my property. So you had a lot of people that were a job. So we said, you know what, there's some money allocated for renewable energy projects. And we made a decision and we started implementing that goal of, basically creating a renewable energy industry. And that happened during my tenure. And things started picking up a little bit more in 2012. So we were just a little bit above the 0 mark, but we were in economic growth in the positive side after 6 years of negative growth. But then, we had the fiscal oversight board and all the things that happened, the La Quiebra, all these things. And you were able to see on the planning and development side the different factions moving to position themselves in order for the next opportunity. No one knew about Hurricane Maria, but when you take a look at the data and you take a look at the different positions of the gremios, the home builders, the hoteliers, all these people, they were starting to pick places and pick partners to effect their own projects, so they could build their projects without thinking about the whole population. Okay, so Maricao might be a mecca for agri-tourism, but they didn't consider that in San Juan. I have family in Morovis because of my wife, and they make the best sausages in the world. And that would have been a great opportunity to have one of those Pritco outdated buildings, to repurpose them for these small community entrepreneurs to get in there and create jobs and create sausages, export those sausages. So those are the dark ages when, after Maria, you see a lot of groups by themselves picking up and reinventing things and taking them to market. And now you're seeing government with this piece of legislation saying, no, we're going to be aligning everything to the same people that have been benefiting from rules and regulations for the past 50 years. Planning board with all these zoning reinterpretations that they're doing to the code, the land use map for the island. They did all the public hearings during the time where we were having the Ricky Renuncia uprising, so to speak.
So nobody knew about them.
So no one knew about it. So you combine that, no one knew about that, and the fact that Puerto Rico doesn't have a mainstream planning culture, and that's the perfect recipe to get away with it. Which is after Ricky and after what has happened, I think we're highly motivated to say, you know what, stop. We're taking charge now. And this is one thing that we need to continue looking at. Planning, zoning, these are like very boring stuff, a lot of words. But you need to be paying attention because between those paragraphs, there's stuff there that is going to affect you directly. So we can no longer go through the dark ages when people didn't know or care.
How many questions are there? 2 more, right?
Thank you.
Yes.
Can
La
I want to get in line if there's time after?
Okay, tiene la 4.
Oh,
Okay, next.
so I was gonna ask a question similar to what she's saying about the zoning and environmental sensitive places. Is there like the farmers or the people that live in poor areas in Puerto Rico, do they actually know that the places they live are valuable and rezoning it also is gonna create like deep environmental issues?
They're beginning to know about these things because in the post-Ricky scenario, people are more actively involved into learning the intricacies of planning and zoning and how that affects their daily lives. So I would say yes, but our job here in the mainland is to collaborate with them. But one thing that Edwin said is that we need critical on-site intelligence, which means that when I know about Maricao, now I look at Jacqueline and I can get on the phone or email and say, Jackie, what's going on?
Yes, farmers actually are involved.
We need to have that back and forth.
Part of another job they have to do. They have to do public policy. We are going to the Cámara de Representantes, the Senate, to say, hey, this is not what we want. So yes, we are active participants in Puerto Rico.
We need to focus on coffee plantation because Puerto Rico is one of the best coffees from Puerto Rico. It's one of the plantations that we use.
Next question.
Also about zoning. So first a point of clarification and then a question. So zoning parcels, rezoning, you said was from zones or land impacted by hurricanes, and what other areas are being rezoned?
Environmentally sensitive areas, which the government of Puerto Rico has known this for
Like
decades and
coastal,
decades.
like-
Coastal, mountainside, subsidence, different things.
There's different maps. There's the FEMA map that has to do with flood zones. Then there's the zoning map from the planning board. So we're talking 2 things.
Okay, so the question then is, so what is the projected use for the, well, what are they rezoning to?
We don't know.
And what is
The thing that we've been talking
There's no, it hasn't been
Highest
rezoned
and
to
best
something
use.
else yet?
But it's highly subjective. We don't know.
to let,
So we don't know what those zones are gonna be used for.
Correct?
we don't know, but we do know that they are changing residential spaces to make them commercial spaces open for commerce.
We also have the fact that we have a bankrupt government, so they are on the lookout for revenue. And that on a short-term vision for revenue is not necessarily what's the long-term benefit. Exactly. It's like you're looking for money, you start selling your typewriter and then your paper and then your pens, you know?
And if you have natural resources open for public and for commerce, then you're compromising nature, you're compromising our natural resources. Any other question? Go.
All these interventions are local and bottom up. And it seems to me that the government policy is top down and disjointed from what you're talking about. For instance, one of the latest proposals proposals from the government was to create a yacht economy where mega yachts could come from places like Monaco and use our facilities. Last year they stopped because only 20 people enrolled. They were teaching Mandarin in public schools. Now they have a proposal to teach golf in public schools. It seems that there's this fantasy island economy versus what's going on the ground, and I find it very odd. Can you please comment? Is it true or am I making it up?
No, you're not making it up.
I would say it's symptomatic of a thinking that is about consumption, right? Like at the time that they were doing the mega yachts in Roosevelt Roads, it was, well, we're trying to get rich people here, and for the rest of us, such is life. We'll go and see that consumption, and that's a great thing. But no one said we're going to make boats here, right?
Right.
There wasn't a concept of an island surrounded, as Donald Trump would say, an island surrounded by water. You make boats or you make a fishing industry. There's nothing wrong with knowing Mandarin and having a cultural exchange and having economic exchange with other countries. But golf, right? The most land-intensive use of recreational space that's also environmentally sensitive.
Not to mention golf fees.
Well, just like it's so expensive. Like, how are you going to pay for it? It is a mindset that starts with what does being wealthy look like, and then let's emulate that instead of saying what does it take to create wealth, and then let's follow those steps.
What he mentioned, el plan de uso de terrenos de Puerto Rico está diseñado para el éxodo de puertorriqueños.
Exacto.
Es básicamente porque mientras, if you have this space that is wonderful, but you say it's not for that anymore, it's for commerce and for yachts and for whichever other ambition, then you are enticing more people to leave the country, and you're enticing more people who have wealth to maybe to just stay longer and stay closer to the beach.
Very good.
Another Hawaii, exactly.
But don't despair. We're working really hard to not let that happen. So when there's an email, if you want to send like a ton of emails to la Junta de Planificación de Puerto Rico, hey, no queremos esto,
Send it to the governor.
que se les llene el email, que esta gente no quiere este plan de uso de terreno para Puerto Rico. Bueno, es precipitado, no es bien pensado y está literalmente diseñado para unos pocos. Así que contamos con el apoyo de todos ustedes.
Wanda Vázquez, we're watching you.
Somos solidarios desde que nacemos, necesitamos volver con esa solidaridad y yo creo que eso va a ser lo que nos va a sacar de este abismo donde estamos ahora mismo.
Bien. Well, thank you so much. It's a wrap for today.